Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here with us this afternoon. This is a really exciting and interesting session of office hours today because we have with us two very special guests. We have Tina Snodderly, who is CFO, Tennessee Orthopaedic Clinics, a division of Tennessee Orthopaedic Alliance. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And we have Terry Rosenthal, who is CEO of the Orthopaedic Clinic. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So before we get started, let me introduce both of our guests today so that everyone understands their level of expertise and why we're so thrilled to have them here with us. And we'll start alphabetically, to be fair. So Terry is in his 13th year as the Chief Executive Officer and his 26th year overall with the Orthopaedic Clinic that is located in Opelika, Alabama. Prior to his role as CEO, he was the clinic's director of sports medicine and clinical coordinator. He's originally a certified athletic trainer and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in athletic training for California State University, a Master's of Education in Health Promotion from Auburn University, and an MBA for Troy University. So he has been an AAOE member since 2011, and he's the current chair of the association's Data Analytics Council, a past president of Alabama Bones and of MGMA of East Alabama. And in his athletic training days, and a lot of you will like this, he worked in the NFL, the NHL, NFL Europe, and on several television programs. So we'll be having another session so he can give us the inside scoop on all of that. So Tina, welcome. Tina is currently the Chief Revenue Officer at Tennessee Orthopaedic Alliance. She has 22 years of orthopedic experience and previously was Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer at Tennessee Orthopaedic Clinics, a division of TOA. She holds an MBA from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Management from Milligan College. She is certified medical practice executive and holds a green belt in Lean Six Sigma certification. She's been a member of AAOE since 2012 and is a current member of the Southeastern Association of Orthopedic Executives. And for the past few years, Tina has served on the Elections Council and the 2019 Conference Committee. So welcome. So we're going to do a couple of things today. First, we want to discuss the unique challenges that orthopedic practices are facing today with patient access. And of course, specifically that includes prior authorization and eligibility. And we want to give some actionable tips on how to overcome these challenges. We all know that orthopedics are growing and they're a service line that hospitals look at as a profit center. But before we delve into those questions, let's talk about the AAOE conference. It's coming up in Orlando next week. We're going to be there exhibiting at booth 900. So tell me about the conference. Either one of you are happy to start and what you're looking for there.
You want to start, Tina?
Yeah, sure. Well, and I've been attending these conferences for a long time. And what I look for when I attend, I mean, they have so much energy, and that's what makes this conference in particular a whole lot of fun, from the vendor representation to the networking that we have. I look for networking with other similar practices, being all orthopedics, and learning from the actual conference itself with the actual content is just excellent.
I would certainly agree with Tina. It's a tremendous networking opportunity to meet with fellow executives from all across the country, from different size practices, some of whom may have the same problems you're having, some of whom may not, but may have insight on problems that are coming your way. And, you know, the educational content is tremendous. It's so hard to keep up with everything that's going on with all the regulations and everything that we have to keep up with and be on top of. Be able to go to a meeting where you get information on everything at one time. And for me, it's very nice because when I try to do a webinar or do something at the office, it's very difficult because you're going to get interrupted and things are going to happen. So that's why I really like to go to a meeting where I can focus in, get good information. So mostly I'm looking for some good information that I can bring back to help improve my practice, and then the chance to network with people like Tina and others.
there any topics that are going to be presented this year that kind of jump off the page to either one of you that you're really interested in sinking your teeth into?
Well, actually, I'm actually moderating the pre-certification one, and I just can't wait to hear kind of other, similar experts in the room that actually have, some solutions and kind of what they're dealing with from pre-certification process. So I know I'm really excited about that one. There's so many, Terry, do you have some that you prefer?
Well, obviously, for me, benchmarking and anything to do with data is important to me. I'm actually presenting in 2 different sessions on the AAOE benchmarking survey and how to use data in your practice. I know Joseph Matthews, our president-elect, is doing one on benchmarking and physical therapy. So those are very important to me. I haven't had a chance to look at the whole program. I'd like to see things about the No Surprise Act. I'm sure there'll be something on that. And then, I've spent better part of the last 2 weeks on a lot of lobbying phone calls, and the number one thing that we're speaking to Washington about right now is prior authorizations and the burdens that is putting on a lot of practices. So looking forward to the session that Tina is moderating.
Oh, those are great issues. I'm curious, before we move on, what happened over the past few years during COVID? Were you able to have the conference, or have you just been able to start again to have it in person?
Go ahead, Terry.
In 2020, when COVID first hit, we had to pivot and we went to a virtual meeting that was very successful. A lot of good content. And then in 2021, when some of the world was still battling with COVID, some other areas were not battling as much. I think our CEO, Addie, and her team, and Tina and the board of directors did a tremendous job. We moved the meeting back. So we actually had our annual meeting in 2021. It was in Dallas. Attendance was not as great as you'd expect, but again, we were still in the midst of the pandemic in a lot of places. And then Chicago last year was a little bit better. It's kind of odd because the 2021 meeting was in October, and then the 2022 meeting was in April, so they were close together. So a lot of people, had some restrictions in terms of travel budget and things like that. But I know this year, I think we're last I heard, well over 400 attendees, which is back to the pre-COVID levels. So I think Addie and the current board of directors did a tremendous job in making decisions that they felt would benefit the membership and doing what we did. And we came out of it pretty well.
Yeah, I will say
That's
the one rebound coming back from COVID and in Dallas, that first one, everyone was so happy to be there, and everyone was so excited to see each other, and it just felt so good going to that conference there in Dallas. So and I do think Addie and the board of directors at that time did a fantastic job with that. So yeah, they really did a great job with it.
So I imagine there are representatives of practices of all sizes who attend, and that brings us really to our first question, is that regardless of size, whether you're one physician or a large multi-office practice, patient access is the gateway to revenue. So let's start with that topic. Can you give us an idea of what the landscape looks like today for orthopedic practices? And the challenges you see that are common for the industry? Sure.
Do you want me to start on this one, Terry?
Sure.
What I see is basically we have a lot of issues in healthcare, but all of our goal is patient care and quality patient care, and how we get that patient cared for and the care that they need in a timely manner. And we have a lot of barriers right now, especially with the carriers and the pre-authorization process. And then staffing, we've all heard that in every industry, staffing continues to be a problem. So I think one of our challenges is how we leverage new technologies to overcome some of these barriers of patient care. And then, of course, we have, some reimbursement issues from CMS that we're all dealing with. There's tons and tons of coding problems. And you don't want to know the list of all the problems, do you?
Sounds like those are the hot burning issues, right?
Those were hot burning issues, yes.
Terry might want to add hot burning issues from his side.
Well, there's not a shortage of patients right now in orthopedics, especially as population gets older and with the advances in joint replacements and things like that, we're not hurting for patients. But like Tina said, the technology issues are something I think we can really jump onto. I'm hoping that we get the expansion of telehealth permanently that was expanded during COVID. For a practice like mine, I'm in an area that the population is about 150,000, but we're pulling from 7 counties. So we've got people that drive an hour, hour and a half to come see us. And it doesn't make sense we make them drive an hour and a half to give them their MRI results when that's something that could be done on a telehealth call. And during COVID, we've been able to do that. So I think that if anything good came out of COVID for orthopedics, I think it's that, in that we can have telehealth hopefully expanded. And the reimbursement issue, of course, continues to be a huge issue with supply chain issues, prices going up, cost of labor is going up, but reimbursement continues to go down for practices, and CMS, continues to cut the fee schedule, and it's getting to a point where some practices are finding it difficult to stay independent. My practice is fighting fiercely to remain independent, but there's a lot of pressure from private equity and from hospitals to gobble up these practices because, like you mentioned earlier in this conversation, hospitals see orthopedics as a profit center, and the more they can drive to their ORs and their MRI machines and their PT, the more profit they can make. Those are the challenges I think facing orthopedic is, if you're an orthopedist and you want to stay independent, it's getting more and more difficult with the regulations being placed on you to have to meet these the cost of these regulations, and it's going to be tough to sustain.
And I think it's any size that you are, even if you're a smaller orthopedic practice, especially, if you're a medium size and then a larger one, just trying to be sustainable. That's very hard. And the goal, of course, for all of us is to deliver quality patient care. And that's our number one priority. That's why we're in this business. And I think some of these things coming down the pathway makes it harder and harder for us to financially do that. So then what do we do? We're not going to give up the quality patient care. So then we have to kind of be more selective in our approaches. And part of that is adapting new technologies. And we do actually use Infinix for some of our MRIs and ESIs. And that has helped us with the staffing. Some of the staffing solution has been very successful. But at the same time, there's other technologies I'm looking at and the cost versus people. And so there's just lots of challenges. So all good, like Terry said, as we try to make sure that we're sustainable and can still have a decent business and pay our staff accordingly. So.
You both mentioned staying independent, and certainly that's something that hospitals have fought and lost for a long time to be able to keep their doors open. But when you look at technology, I'm curious, do you look at technology as a multi-pronged solution, that it not only can help you with this short staffing issue by taking on some of the redundant tasks, but it can also help you to actually become more economically viable?
And efficient. I agree with that, and more efficient, and then shorten the time frame for our patients to have to wait for their care. So from my perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the technology that we've implemented here has definitely made us more efficient on both the patient care side and the revenue cycle management side. The things that we can do now that when I joined this practice 26 years ago, I would have never thought we'd have kiosks in the lobby that people are checking in on and paying their copays and paying their balances and doing things like that. So, technology, as much as we all like to, I don't know what the word is, but bemoan it, I guess, but it is important for us, and provided your servers and your system doesn't go down. But I do think that the more technology you can implement, the more efficient you can get. We have replaced staff with technology and with outsourcing some areas of our revenue cycle management. It's cheaper to do that than to pay benefits and everything on some employees. So the more technology, then the better you use it. Just having the technology is one thing. You have to know how to use it and use it properly.
That's right. Before we move on, I want to encourage the people who are joining us today. Thank you. And if you have questions, please just put them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go along. Terry, you mentioned, you don't want to have patients driving an hour and a half just to get MRI results. And certainly in, orthopedics is highly competitive. Then patient satisfaction is really a huge differentiator. So talk to us about the role that when patient access is done right, the first interaction with that patient, that it contributes to patient satisfaction. Talk to us about how it contributes to retention as well, and as well as the business side of things.
Most definitely. I mean, if you have a patient that has a bad experience, especially like I said, I'm not in a tiny town, but I'm in a town where a lot of people go to church together and a lot of people know each other. And so your reputation is everything. And one thing I stress to my staff, my front desk staff, my appointment staff, and I always have is, and my clinical staff, you spend more time with the patient on average than a doctor does. Patient's going to spend more time on the phone with your appointment people, your front desk, if there's an insurance issue, and then, with your x-ray techs and things like that, a lot of times you're going to spend more time with them than they're going to spend with the doctor. So we make it a point here to make sure that our staff treats every patient like they would want their mother or father treated. And it is important, especially, excuse me, in an area where there's only 2 orthopedic groups. It's important, but it's really important in a city where there may be 10 or 12 to choose from, that you really have to treat your patients right, give them a quality experience. And that quality experience is everything from how long it takes someone to answer your phone, how long the line is at the front desk, how long they sit in the lobby before they see the doctor, how long they sit in the room before the doctor comes in. So we try to do a lot of things to be as efficient as possible on the back end, getting things entered in the computer so the patient has an in and out experience. Because to me, that's the biggest complaint I get from patients is how much time it takes them to come in and see somebody.
Yeah, and kind of on the back end of adding to what Terry says, then you have the billing process and the pre-authorization process and making sure that we can get them the services they need timely, like if it's an MRI or a surgery, because sometimes, even though it might be the payer that is causing the delay, and like Terry said, I've been on some of those calls through AAOE with some of the lobbying that we're doing. We need some kind of pre-authorization reform and some kind of standardized platform for that, so that our patients don't experience a 2-week delay for as a non-urgent usually case, but still for a service they need. And patients sometimes don't understand that we put that in the day they were there, as soon as the notes were done, and we're still waiting on the insurance carrier to get back with us. So that's all part of it.
Go ahead.
It's amazing to me how many people have insurance, don't know what their insurance covers, doesn't even know how their insurance works when it comes to things like prior authorization. We had a situation last week where we had a patient, husband of someone who works at another office in a different specialty, very upset with us because we were having to get a prior authorization on the MRI, and they just couldn't understand that, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama requires a certain process before they'll approve an MRI. Well, the patient doesn't understand that. They don't care about what Blue Cross is saying. You're the one trying to get them the MRI. So it amazes me, again, patients have this insurance, but they just think they give their card and everything's taken care of. They don't realize what involved on the back end, what their insurance pays for. So that's always kind of been amazing to me.
Here's an important point. How much time is your staff spending, do you think, per patient to go through all of that with all the different insurances that come in your door?
That's a great question. I could do a rough number. Terry, what do you think per patient?
I know for some studies, they say per prior authorization, it takes about 5 clicks. So however long it takes, however fast your person is on the computer. And I will say I am sort of fortunate because in Alabama, 85% of the commercial insurance is one payer. They pretty much dominate the state. So I don't have it as bad as some other people have it, because when you're dealing with one that much, what it takes, versus some of these other ones, you don't know what their requirements are. They'll tell you it's pre-authorized, then you get a denial, and so I would say probably at least 10 to 15 minutes per patient.
Yeah, I was leaning more toward 15 because sometimes then the insurance companies require peer-to-peer, and then we have to get the office clinical staff involved because our pre-cert team here in the Knoxville market is actually centralized, and then we have to coordinate a scheduling a call with a physician, and then they have to talk to someone that's probably not an orthopedic specialty at all and trying to get something approved for a patient. So I'd say about 15 minutes minimum for some insurance companies, especially.
Based on what you're saying and the fact that you've mentioned that you're lobbying in Washington to reduce the burden of prior authorization, are you seeing that this is an issue that is delaying care for patients when they need it urgently? I mean, if it's not urgent, then you can kind of live with it. But how is this impacting patient care overall?
A recent study from the American Medical Association found that 34% of physicians feel that delaying care because of a prior authorization led to a death, hospitalization, or disability, permanent condition in a patient. And I know that I saw a stat last week that 94% of physicians feel that prior authorizations are delaying care that their patients need. So it is a huge issue, and it just there's no continuity. They all have their different criteria. There's no uniform set of standards. So it's just it's kind of all over the place. So we're hoping that we can get some movement on it and get some kind of rules put in place. I do think that if you believe what you're reading, some of the payers have heard this. I know United has come out and said that they're going to ease up some of their restrictions. I know Texas has done a lot on the state level to put in a gold card program. Alabama has something similar for MRIs, where if you meet a certain percentage criteria that you can get them done without a prior authorization, the ordering physician. So I do think the payers are hearing it, but I don't think it's happening fast enough, and I don't think it's happening with enough payers.
Are you experiencing the same thing? It sounds like it's across the country.
Absolutely. We have some state movement here in Tennessee also, but it's happening across the U.S. and it's probably, besides the fee schedule, the number one issue for all of us, and not just orthopedics. I'd say it's in every specialty, the barriers. And I'm going to say even post-COVID has gotten a lot worse. I mean, these carriers, I think there's definitely some challenges to work with them and get some kind of platform for our patient care. And I agree with Terry's numbers as far as delay of care does actually cause complications or even deaths in some cases.
So we've talked a lot about prior authorization was kind of the gateway, right? That's when the patients first come. What about when the patients get in the door? What's happening with claims and denials and coding? You both listed those as problems up front. Can you tell us kind of, you have the advantage of being on this board, what's the landscape? What are people really struggling with, do you think, in general?
Denials. I mean, just upfront denials. There was a recent article that Cigna has this software that they automatically deny, and I don't know. They came back and said that wasn't exactly true, but the article's out there, and they automatically deny certain claims up front, and we'll get the pre-cert. We do everything we're required to do, and then they'll ask for the notes, and that's another 90 to 120 day style, and then they say they don't have the note, but they do, and then you send it again. So I think the denials, even when we do get everything done, and then make sure that you have a claim scrubber, that your claims are going out the door correctly to begin with, and that you have verified the patient's benefits so you don't get these denials for it's causing more and more delay in getting the claim reimbursed.
Yeah, I think what Tina's mentioned, the claim scrubber is huge because, CMS's big thing now is their takebacks, and they target certain things. It's been for orthopedics, it's been back braces and knee braces. Now it's getting into the viscos. And if you just have one thing that maybe fell through the cracks in that visit, and you didn't catch it because you didn't scrub the claim, and it goes out and they deny it, those are expensive. When you start talking about some back braces and visco injections, those are expensive things that you're going to end up, they'll pay it up front, but they're going to come back and get it, and you're going to end up losing money. And it's just the amount of things that we do in orthopedics that require pre-cert. It's probably more than most specialties, whether it be advanced imaging, whether it be DME with a lot of private payers, whether it be injections. For a while here, we had some United plans requiring pre-authorization to just do a regular x-ray. So you take all that, and then when you start talking about denied claims, that takes someone time to go back in and get the information and send it. So then you're cutting into that efficiency again, and you're paying people to do stuff that doesn't need to be done. And like Tina said, you can have the prior authorization. They can, they'll tell you a prior authorization is not a guarantee of payment. That's their favorite line they like to tell you. And it's not, because they'll come back and say, well, that wasn't correct. That shouldn't have been authorized. Well, you've done the procedure, or you've done the work, and now you're not going to get paid for it. So it's definitely challenging. The denials are huge, and getting money out the door and getting it back in.
So in Washington, can never ask about results because you never know what they're going to be, but what are the top 2 or 3 things that you think the lobbyists in the association that you want to see changed?
Top 2 for me. Yeah. Go ahead, Terry.
I think number 1 for all of us is getting some kind of permanent fix on the fee schedule, whether they tie it to inflation or do something, because it's not sustainable for our costs to keep going up and our reimbursement to keep going down. It's just, people are going to stop seeing Medicare. And what gets lost in some of that is a lot of payers will follow Medicare's fee schedule to some extent, in terms of now maybe 150% of Medicare, or I'm not saying all payers do that, but there are some that do. So I think number 1 is a permanent fix, so that we're not getting these cuts every year while our costs are going up. I think prior authorizations is a big one. I know from speaking to a lot of these congressional aides, they've heard that from not just orthopedics, but a lot of specialties, and a lot of people are involved in that. And then I think another one that we've had a lot of talk about is consolidation, and pushing stuff to these large health centers and to these private equity groups that are in the end going to end up costing more money and are not probably the most efficient, most high quality care. So I know there is some movement on consolidation of healthcare and trying to allow practices to remain independent. So for me, those would be my 3.
And those are my top 3. I mean, number 1 and number 2 especially. So.
So almost out of time, believe it or not, but let's talk quickly about adopting automation. Both of you said, technology. Are there specific types of technology? Like, if you had your choice, would you start with technology that did the redundant tasks and denials, or coding, or for people who are attending, where would you start if you could choose one technology to bring it into the practice?
Coding here in all of our markets would be one, and then I mean, it depends on the technology. Coding is a huge one for us, and coding correctly, so they can't take some of this money back. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say anything related to revenue cycle management, whether it be your coding, your clearinghouse, whatever. You want to make sure that is the best it can be, because delays in getting your money out the door, that delays getting your money in the door, and then that makes it very difficult. EMRs, there's a lot of them out there. None of them are perfect, but they do the job. But to me, anything that deals with your revenue cycle management, making sure that is the best that it could be and the best fit for your practice, is where I would start.
That's great. Well, before we go, do you want to promote the conference one more time? You've got the floor for advertising.
Come see us next week in Orlando. We're excited to be there, and lots of great networking and great topics and content.
Yeah, some great sessions. Looking through it, and an opportunity to see a lot of these technology products will be there. You can see a lot of them that may be able to help you in your practice. Great chance to network, great chance to get some education, and looking at it, the weather's supposed to be nice, so that's always a plus.
Yes.
Oh, that's the biggest sales right there, is the weather. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you for your time. It's been great to have your insights. As always important to have this overview of what's going on to give us context, when everybody's sharing in the same battles. So thank you, and we hope you have a great conference.
Right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.
You too.